The banshee is a female spirit in Irish folklore whose bone-chilling scream is said to be an omen of death. If you hear her shrieks, it is said that a member of your family will pass away soon. Some people believe that each family actually has a banshee of their own that watches over them. Some stories say that instead of appearing as an omen of death, they appear to celebrate someone's death. They often appear as a woman dressed in a gray or white cloak with reddened eyes from constantly weeping. Can relate. The banshee is a tale I'm quite familiar with, and I always imagine them to be more of a nervous creature rather than a vicious one. Their job is basically to let people know that their time is up, so I always imagine them not being too fond of the fact that they're constantly warning people that someone they love is going to die soon, so that's why I depicted the banshee the way that I did.
Urban Japanese Legends, Part 13. If you don't want to get scared, stop watching and scroll. Akamanto is the spirit of a masked man who waits in women's stall bathrooms.
Akamanto translates to red cloak. It is said he is a handsome man who wears a mask and red cloak. He is usually found in the last stall of the women's stall bathrooms. He will say, "Aka kami ga ao kami dochi ga hoshii?" If you say red, you suffer a violent death. If you say blue, you are suffocated until you turn blue and die. The way to avoid being killed is to politely refuse anything he offers.
Do you guys remember that creepy Beanie Baby urban legend? There was a rumor back in 2014 that was freaking people out all around the world. The rumor was that spider eggs were used to fill these popular Beanie Babies back in the 1990s. And it was said that in 2014, these spider eggs were beginning to hatch. Now, apparently these spider eggs belong to brown recluse spiders, which are horrifying to look at. And all over the world, people were reporting that these brown baby spiders were bursting through the seams of their Beanie Babies everywhere. So people were throwing out their Beanie Babies left, right, and center because obviously they didn't want these spiders to be like hatching all over their bedroom. But thankfully, later on it came out that all this was just a hoax. Because obviously spider eggs can't just lay dormant for over 20 years, that's impossible. But still to this day, I can't look at Beanie Babies the same. I just can't.
Mysterious cryptids that may exist, Part 1. So the one that you all know is Bigfoot. There have been reports for decades from people that claim that they have seen the Bigfoot. And that was happening in the 1950s, where Bigfoot didn't have a name. He is named by his enormous footprints, which are 24 by 8 inches. And fun fact, he is actually around 3 meters tall. Most of the scientists have claimed that this is not true, that the creature doesn't exist, but there are some scientists that devote their career to find the Bigfoot. Do you believe that Bigfoot exists or not?
The urban legend of Telepo. This story takes place with a poor, starving old man in the woods with his 3 dogs. While he's out hunting for food, he sees this giant creature, which he ends up shooting at, thinking that it will provide a lot of food for him and his 3 dogs. The creature then starts demonically screaming before it runs away back into the woods. The man then proceeds to go over and pick up its tail that he had shot off and decides to make it into a stew and eat it for dinner. Later that night, when the man is off drifting to sleep, he hears a rustling and a clawing noise around him. Looking up to find that the creature is sitting right at the end of his bed, demanding the return of its telepo. The man then calls for his dogs, who come to his aid and chases off the beast into the middle of the night. However, only 2 of the 3 dogs returned. The man then tries to go back to sleep, only to find that Telepo has returned an hour later, demanding with even more force the return of its Telepo. Predictably, the 2 dogs chase the creature away, but only 1 returns. Next part coming in 2 seconds.
Today we're talking about Smile Dog. Also, before I show the picture, I just want to give you guys a warning, it is kind of graphic. So what the Smile Dog is basically a picture that began to be spread around the internet, and most commonly in chat forums. People would spread the picture of the Smile Dog kind of like a chain letter, and supposedly right after you see the photo, you'll start to get nightmares, and it's said that you'll die if you don't spread the photo of the Smile Dog.
Phone numbers you should never call, Part 7. So this one is the phone number. When you call that number, you can hear several things. You can hear a creepy recording of a man counting and repeating the numbers 1, 3 and 7, following by a sound of someone calling out your name. And then they tell you what you are doing during the call. They said that they are following your every move. Do you think it's real or just a legend?
La Planchada is a Mexican ghost story of a nurse who is often seen in hospitals. The story takes place in the 1930s and tells the tale of a nurse who took great pride in her job and always made sure her uniform was clean, crisp, and perfectly ironed. She ended up falling in love with one of the doctors at the hospital, and they were shortly engaged. The doctor left town to attend a medical seminar, and weeks went by where she did not hear from him. Beside herself with worry, she found out that the doctor met another woman while he was away, and the two had wed. She was extremely heartbroken and fell into such a deep depression that she started to neglect her own patients. One of her patients ended up passing away as a direct result of her neglect, and she became ill herself. She ended up passing away in the hospital where she worked, and it is reported that when the hospital staff are neglecting their patients, this ghostly nurse cares for them instead. When patients are asked how they seem to miraculously recover, they are reported saying, "A nurse came in and healed me."
Scariest urban legends from every state. Texas, the Candy Lady. In the 1900s, children in an unnamed rural town began to go missing, and people were blaming it on the Candy Lady. The story says that she would go around leaving candy on children's windowsills, and she would be able to lure them in by leaving notes promising more candy. This story picked up steam when a farmer found rotted teeth on his farm and eventually found the dead body of a boy with candy stuffed in his pocket. While little is known about the origin of this story, many claim that the Candy Lady is real, and her name was Clara Crane. Whichever state gets the most likes, I'll do tomorrow.
If you think you haven't heard any crazy stories from Fresno, prepare for this one, because there's video evidence. Back in the late 90s/early 2000s, weird sightings of a strange cryptid have been seen around Fresno, California. However, in 2007, a surveillance video caught these strange creatures on camera with really long legs and small heads. I'm gonna be inserting the video in like 2 seconds, so you have been warned. The show Fact or Faked actually did an episode on these creatures to see if they were real or not. These professional paranormal investigators could find no evidence that this was faked in any sort of way. They deemed these creatures to be completely unexplainable, and some people even call them the protectors of the forest. What makes these creatures super eerie is the fact that we don't even know what they stemmed from, what their origin story is, where they came from, what they are, why they exist. But they do continue to pop up around this area, so if somebody was faking this, they would have to be really persistent. Don't forget to comment your hometown so you can be featured in the next Urban Legends video.
Today we're talking about the white string. During the 1980s, this was a popular legend in Japan, and it scared a lot of children into not wanting to get their ears pierced. So a young girl wanted to get her ears pierced, but her parents were against it because they thought she was too young. After a lot of begging, her parents finally agreed to let her. They gave her money and told her to go to the jewelry store at the mall to get them pierced. But instead, she decided to keep the money and do it herself. With the help of her best friend, they heated a needle and did the piercings on their own. It was painful, but she was happy she got them pierced. However, sometime after, her ears got irritated and swollen, specifically her left ear. She went to the restroom to take a closer look and noticed something sticking out. It was a white string sticking out of her earlobe. She began to pull on it and realized it had no end. Finally, she used a pair of scissors to cut the string. Then everything went black. She couldn't see and she was rushed to the ER. She was examined, and that's when the doctor said, "I'm sorry, you'll be blind for the rest of your life." That wasn't a white string, that was an optic nerve.
SCPs that could end humanity. SCP-1591. This is actually a star with glass around it. When the star shines on an object, it first becomes transparent and then it fades away. So the glasses are always replaced. If a person is directly exposed to the light of the star, they will lose the ability to speak and try to run away. But they won't be able to do that because the light will destroy them and then make them disappear. So it could easily evaporate everything around it.